How's it going, everyone? Mike the Warhost here with the first painting tutorial for this year's Spooktober extravaganza. As voted by members of this community, we're going to be painting up a batch of mummies from the Age of Fantasy wargame released by One Page Rules. I have a total of 10 minis I'll be painting up in total, but to show up exactly what I'll be doing, I'm going to focus on this guy in particular. I've already put down a primer coat of Vallejo skeleton bone through my airbrush. Today's paint job isn't going to win you any awards. I'm more focused on getting people's models ready for the tabletop as quickly as possible. I'm also not going to spend a great deal of time on these guys simply because mummies are a chaff unit in Age of Fantasy, and I don't want to spend hours highlighting minis that are only going to be taken off the board as soon as my opponent looks at them funny. We're going to focus on painting these minis in individual sections first for their base coats. To start things off, we're going to do the wraps, and for that we'll be using Ivory Tusk from 2 thin coats. So here we have all of the wraps painted up. It can be a bit difficult to see against the bone primer, but it will definitely help once the washes are down. Our next step will be the cloth, and for that we're using Jade Green. This will provide a good amount of color variety and pop to the mummies once the paint job is complete. And here is our test mummy with the green cloth complete. The 2 thin coats paints do a great job over the bone primer, almost acting like a contrast or speed paint. I'm really happy with these paints overall. Next up will be the metallic bits, and for that we'll use Overlord Brass. With the brass complete, the mummy is really starting to come together. Only a couple short steps before adding our washes. While our test mummy doesn't have much else, some of the others do have extra bits that will need some additional attention, like this mummy's hat, leg armor, and leather belt. For the final bits, I'll be using Dwarven Iron for the armor, Noble Steed Brown for the leather, and portions of the brass bits will get some additional colors with Sanguine Scarlet and Cursed Blue to break up the monotony of just one color. With the brass sections broken up with some red and blue, we're getting to the finish line. One last base coat step will be on the bases themselves. Here I'm using the sculpted bases for the mummified undead. I paid for them, so I'm going to use them. What I'll be doing is painting the parts of the bases with loose sand with Skeleton Legion to differentiate them from the sandstone that is currently colored in the same skeleton bone as the rest of the unprimed portions of the mini. Like the wraps, the painted loose sand will be somewhat tricky to pick out from the primer. Fortunately, after this step, that will no longer be an issue. It's finally time for the washes. I'll be using both Flesh Wash for the mummy and Sepia Wash for the base. This will provide some good visual separation between mummy and base while bringing details together quickly and easily. Here is the final result for our mummy. As you can see, the washes really made everything on the model blend together incredibly well for the amount of time that we put in so far. There's only a couple of small details left. I'm going to add some quick gems to some of these mummies by using Top Brass and Mithril Blade as a quick bright base coat, followed up by Vallejo Transparent Red and Blue. And here we are ready for the tabletop. I took a moment to paint the rims of these bases with Noble Steed Brown before this little exhibition to tidy things up. Hopefully this will provide some inspiration for getting your armies painted up and on the table quickly. Stay tuned though, as the Spooktober painting continues next week with a visit from beyond the stars.